Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Marty, CEO and co-founder of Pylon, a B2B support platform that's raised $20 million in funding. Marty, what's up, man?
Hey, Brett. Nice to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah, super excited to have you. So we were just joking there at the start that I can't pronounce your last name. So just for the record, how do we say your last name?
It's Kausas. So the first S is like an SH. And actually in Lithuanian, you're supposed to add like a little birdie on top of the S. So it's a sh sound.
That's a tough one. I'm glad I stuck with Marty. I didn't want to insult you right out the gate. So amazing, man. Let's jump in. Talk to us about what you're building.
Yeah. So we're building Pylon. We're building the first customer support platform built for B2B companies. So think Zendesk, Intercom, Salesforce Service Cloud, but built for B2B specifically.
What's so specific about B2B that it needs, purpose-built platforms?
So in B2C companies, you only have one team that's customer facing. So the customer support team. In B2B, you have customer support, customer success, solutions, professional services. All these different teams are adjacent that all need to work with customer data, build workflows around it, ask questions about it, and collaborate on helping solve customer problems. And so what happens in B2B companies is you end up buying a ticketing system. You might buy a separate customer success platform. And you stitch all these tools together instead of having one purpose-built tool that allows everyone to work in the same place. So that's what we're building.
What were you doing prior to this? How did you observe that this is a problem in the world that was worth the time, money, and energy to solve it?
We did not experience this problem firsthand. And in fact, we didn't start with this problem as the initial thing we were solving. Actually, I was a software engineer before at Airbnb. I knew I wanted to start a company from like a very young age and, so straight out of school, went straight to Airbnb, was a software engineer there for a couple of years, absolutely hated it, and was working on ideas on the side until eventually I just took the leap of faith. I ended up pivoting for around a year and a half with effectively no progress to show. Spent a year on one idea, 6 months on another. And we had revenue for the second idea and it could have been like a bootstrap business, but it was not going to be the big thing I wanted it to be. Spent many more months after that pivoting and then finally started working with my current co-founders, Robert and Advith. And, we pivoted even more together and then finally landed on an idea, which is not even Pylon, but was actually kind of the initial seedling of the idea that grew into what is now the current product. So the initial problem we discovered was that a lot of people were starting to talk to their customers over shared Slack channels, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, kind of like chat-based platforms instead of email. And that was breaking a ton of workflows for people. You can't track tickets, you can't track product feedback, you can't send stuff into your CRM. Just nothing works with this new medium. And so we thought that was super interesting and decided to build initially just a Zendesk to Slack connector. So you could ticket something in a Slack channel and make it a ticket in Zendesk. And, a couple of things to note here. One, our motivation and the way we discovered the idea was super inorganic. I think a lot of people will tell you, experience the problem and then go solve it. We went through our list of problems and we didn't have any that we thought were worth solving. And so, we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what's the goal? The goal is to build a really big, fast growing company. Big for us means $10 billion plus market cap. Fast means, we can get there in 7 years, or at least to 1 billion. We'll see about 10. That might take a little longer. But, for the big market cap, we realized we need to build in a really big category. Customer support is arguably the biggest SaaS category in the world. Fun fact, Salesforce makes more from Salesforce Service Cloud than they do from their Sales Cloud. They make 8.3 billion per year in revenue just off of Service Cloud, their ticketing system, and 7.5 off of Sales Cloud, their CRM. So effectively, biggest SaaS company in the world makes the most money from their support system. That's the category we decided to go after. And then we thought the fastest growing companies are the ones with an emerging trend that they latch onto and grow with. And that trend for us was initially, hey, B2B is becoming more omni-channel in the way they talk to customers.
Yeah, I read a book a while back that I saw Bill Ackman was recommending called The Outsiders. And I believe it was 8 CEOs. He's kind of, goes behind the scenes and it's basically making the case that, being an outsider has a lot of value. I think you just can kind of look at things from a different perspective. Has that been your experience as well?
I think definitely coming from, I think when you go into customer support, it's usually not a space that a lot of people are trying to innovate a lot in. So I think that's changed now with AI because everyone's just oh my God, you can deflect all your tickets and it feels like the perfect application for AI. But in general, yeah, I agree. Like being engineers primarily, so it's me and two co-founders, all of us come from engineering backgrounds, has helped us just think from like a very system. It's actually a great combination. We're very much system thinkers and kind of like engine builders is the way I describe. And support is very much that, where you are kind of trying to create this optimized engine for inputs and outputs, and then making everything work well in between.
How'd you get your first paying customer? Take us back. You don't have to tell us who that was, but like, what was that journey like? How'd you convince someone to give you money?
Yeah, totally. So, the way we were first off, like looking for ideas, it wasn't like we suddenly magically discovered Slack support because again, we didn't have the problem. We were actually DMing people on LinkedIn every single day, just like blindly, who were in the customer support and customer success space. And specifically, we were targeting people with job titles that felt newer. And we thought new job titles could probably mean new workflows and new products that could be built around them. And so we looked at support engineers, solutions engineers, like customer success managers, kind of things that haven't existed for 10 plus years. And so those were the people we were talking to. We every day would wake up and each of us would message 40 people on LinkedIn. So connection requests plus personalized message. You would say, hey, we're founders who are pivoting. Do you have 15 minutes to chat about what you do? And literally like go in blind. It's like, okay, like, what do you care about? What are your priorities? What does your boss care about? What tools do you use? Like, can you what problems are you facing? And so after many months of those calls, like one of the trends that stood out was that people were starting to talk to their customers on Slack and they didn't think much of it. It was actually really interesting. They would talk about it as if, hey, this is like this temporary weird thing that only we do. But turns out we were hearing a lot of people say that of like, hey, this is like just a weird thing that we do. Like, yeah, don't pay attention to that. But we started to think more on it. We're like, hey, that's really interesting. You talk to all of your most valuable customers this way, and you have like no tracking of it at all. You like can't offer them any SLAs or like first response time guarantees. You can't like ticket this into your ticketing system. You can't send a marketing update to all those people like you would over email generally, but you don't talk to them there. So you'd probably want to do it in Slack. And so we thought that was really fascinating. And so we had that idea. Advit, just to like paint the picture, Advit, my co-founder, he calls me. I'm like living in a hacker house and Robert's on the phone as well. And he's like, hey, there might be something about the Slack thing. And it's like a Sunday night. And so I'm like, okay, I hang up. I'm living in a hacker house with 10 other people, some of them founders. And I just go upstairs and I go up to Tejas, one of the co-founders of HighTouch, a Series B data platform company. I say, hey, Tejas, do you guys have this problem? And he's like, yep. And we're looking for a solution right now. So that was how we got, it was obviously took time. We didn't have a product at that point. That was still very much discovery, but within 14 days, we had an MVP in their hands that they were using.
It sounds like this could be an episode of the Silicon Valley show. It used to be on HBO.
Oh, 100%. I think like that show is very real. Like when we were fundraising, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, we went back and watched the episodes of them fundraising and it was the same thing.
I'm due to watch that again. I haven't watched it in probably 4 or 5 years, but I think I'm going to put it back on the list.
Yeah, it's good.
In terms of marketing, so let's talk about, after you make the pivot, you start to see traction. Like, what did that initial marketing strategy look like? And then what's it evolved to? What's it look like today?
Yeah. So initially, our first like probably 3 or 4 customers were all through warm intros. So we were very much asking everyone we knew, hey, like, do you know someone? Do you know any founders? Do you know any people that work at like Series B or C companies was who we were targeting initially. And so we were just like getting warm intros to potential prospects. And that was how we got probably customer 1, 2, and 3. So customer 1 was, hey, I went upstairs and it was my roommate. Number 2 was someone who had worked with one of my co-founders at another company. And then number 3 was someone who had tried to recruit one of my co-founders. And so, personal relationships for all 3 of us, our first 3 customers. And then from that point on, the next probably like 7 were through LinkedIn cold outbound or a combination of that plus, warm intros that also started to trickle in. The LinkedIn stuff, it was as simple as it sounds. You like go on LinkedIn, you filter for your ICP, you like message them, hey, do you guys support customers on Slack? We have a tool that can help you do that. And people would respond and boom, we have meetings. So not like it doesn't happen quickly, of course, but if you are sending personalized messages 40 a day from 3 different accounts, that's pretty good. And you're going to start booking calls.
How personalized did you get? I get some emails where they go like heavy on personalization. And in my head, I just think like that's a waste of time. You could have done like lower level personalization and still caught my attention. Like, how do you think about that when it comes to personalizing messages?
I mean, the more personalized, the better, obviously. But LinkedIn, if you're sending a connection request and like you're personalizing that, you have very few characters to put in. So you can't spend that much time, to be honest, on the message and have that little space. It will be quite similar messaging. So you're really just looking for, okay, is there like a small knit thing? Like, could I say, hey, I saw that you guys mentioned that you offer Slack support on your website. Like that's an easy one. And that will draw their attention and be like, okay, you actually like did some research. So, personalization will not hurt, but you just have to do it in a meaningful way, not in a way of like, hey, we went to the same like college or something, because that's not going to work and no one cares. So
yeah, that's the stuff that I see where I'm like, that just does not work. They'll try to say like some sports analogy or something related to school or a city I lived in or somewhere I grew up.
Right.
It just doesn't work. I think it just feels very, very lame.
We're like,
it feels
hey,
like
have you been to
personalized.
Yeah, it's like, I remember we had a friend who, founder of another company, they were telling us how they were trying personalized emails that would like go on Yelp and look for like pizza shops near their office and be like, oh, like I've been to SF, like, have you ever been to blah pizza shop? And it's like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's borderline creepy, I think, sometimes. Some of the stuff that's out there.
Right.
What about the market category? So obviously, support is an established category, I would guess. There's Gartner has Magic Quadrants on it. But what about B2B support platform? Like, is that a category that you've created, that you've pioneered? How do you think about your category?
Yep. So we're the first ones to do it. No one was saying B2B support platform ever before us. And so for us, it was so interesting. So we started with this like Slack omni-channel problem, and our initial product was actually just like an integration between systems. And only after a year of just being that did we learn a lot from our customers over time that, hey, they were like making all these feature requests for Zendesk or for Intercom. And like, turns out these were things that they were never going to build. And we realized all of these, the reason they're not building them is because it's very specific to just B2B companies and how they operate. And over time, we just built this thesis, okay, maybe if someone built a platform specifically for them, it could be much better. And then there also had to be other market conditions that helped us in that case. So, Zendesk was acquired by private equity literally a day after we had our initial idea. So that really helped a lot. And it also meant that over the course of the next year, the PE effects started to come in, right? Hey, move up market to enterprise, dismiss small customers, layoffs, increase pricing. So like all of that started to come out during that time as well. And we were starting to hear this from our customers. And they basically convinced us that we should build a support platform. They weren't telling us B2B, but like we kind of understood, okay, they want us to start becoming more and more of the full ticketing system. And they're also giving us all this other feedback around things that they're not doing well and that we don't anticipate them ever investing into. And the final thing is everyone's focused on AI and customer support, like everyone. And they're focused on specific type of AI support, which is just ticket deflection. And that's valuable at enterprise and consumer companies where you have super high volume support. For B2B, you have less support and it's less transactional and like more context dependent, and you care way more about the accuracy. So, in B2C, you might have 80% of your questions are easy, like to deflect. They're like simple questions like refund, cancel, change address, stuff like that. And 80% of your questions might be that super easy to automate. In B2B, it's going to be like, hey, I'm like trying to do blah. And then it's like, in order to answer that question, it's not just, oh, like this is one of like 8 questions that we mostly get. It's like that. And even the help center is not going to have like most of those questions. It can be like, okay, let me like go dig into the account history and the context and like who's their CSM and have they, what's their current setup. It's so much more complicated. And so everyone in our industry is focused on just ticket deflection. We are focused on something completely different, which is building the SaaS platform and like the infrastructure for the whole post-sales go-to-market team to live in. And then also our AI looks very different because it's not meant to just deflect tickets because that's too hard. We're more optimizing the internal workflows and helping people be more efficient as they work.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode.
What's really smart about your category is I know what it does just from the name. A lot of times I have founders on and they'll say a category name and it just sounds like kind of Gartner bullshit. Like it doesn't make any sense, especially in like cybersecurity a lot. So I think you did a very good job naming that category. How are you thinking about evangelizing that? And like, what are you doing to evangelize this idea right now?
Yeah, great question. So our big marketing channel right now is LinkedIn. And so, that's just always been from the start, the place where we discovered the idea. That's where we got our first 10 customers. And then we also just post now every single day from all 3 of our founder accounts. So we're like leaning heavily into founder-led marketing. It's funny because this stuff like slowly evolves. We're not the type of people to just be like, okay, let's like be silent and then do big launch. It's like, instead, let's just like keep doing continuous hammering of concepts and ideas. And let's also like see reactions as we put stuff out. So the B2B support thing is resonating a lot. People like, it's funny how easy it was to convince people. In fact, there was no convincing. It just like makes sense to our customers and our prospects that like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. There would be a support system for B2B companies instead of like just consumer. Like it's totally different. Like people can't feel like a ticket if it's like a 100,000 K ACV customer, right? Like it's just like a different type of way that you engage with your customers and like the team that supports them. So honestly, we haven't had to do that much convincing. We just have to like spread the word that this type of platform exists in the first place. And then I'll say like network effect wise, one of the reasons, we wanted to build a horizontal SaaS product in the first place was so we could sell into tech first, because tech is filled with early adopters. And then given that we were all coming from tech backgrounds, it would be easier to, build relationships and, leverage existing ones to get early customers. They're just early adopters. They're willing to like see new ideas. And there's just like a lot of talking that happens among them about, hey, what do you use? How do you solve this problem, et cetera. So lots of like tailwinds there that are helping us. And then also the category is just so simple when you hear it that, we haven't had to do much work there.
Can you unpack that LinkedIn strategy a little bit? Like, what are the buckets of posts? Are you doing, I just got married, here's what I learned about B2B SaaS? Like, are you doing that type of stuff? Is it very, very focused on B2B support? What's that overall posting strategy look like?
Totally. So we're posting every day from all three of our accounts. We have a science now for what type of content we do, and then also just tactically what the post should look like and all that fun stuff. We do a combination of build in public type posts. So, hey, like, we just hired this person. Hey, like, we're building this thing. And people get to like sit and watch essentially an episode of Silicon Valley, like in real life. And so we're posting photos of the team and like explaining how we solved X problem. And people love that. And those posts are usually the ones that go viral and are the ones that get the most engagement and get us more followers. So that brings people in. And also, if we're talking about just like B2B problems that we're facing, other B2B founders and startups will be interested in that. So that'll bring prospects in. We do some like industry posts where it's customer support specific and maybe like less startup oriented and more just, hey, like this is how you should think about AI knowledge management is like a thing we're pushing. Or, hey, here's like why B2B support system should exist. We do a lot of product releases on LinkedIn. So one of our goals, objectives with marketing is to make sure that people think we're shipping really, really fast. And this is a stark contrast to the incumbents that we face, like Zendesk, Intercom, Salesforce. Well, Intercom actually is shipping fast, but like Salesforce Service Cloud, they're not shipping at all, essentially. And so then everyone instead is seeing Pylon, the startup, shipping every single day. And it's impossible to think that like we're not doing well or we're not moving quickly or we're not shipping product. And so you just know that like, hey, magic stuff is happening at Pylon and you're seeing it every single day. So yeah, that's working extremely well. I'll tell you, my best post has gotten 1.2 million impressions, which is pretty extraordinary. I'm sure you know how hard that is. And that post was about how we used to live in our office. So it was very much like one of those just like random viral posts that just grabs a lot of attention and causes a little bit of controversy as well.
Yeah, a little controversy is always good. I think that helps a lot. Did you have a format that you've experimented with that you've just stopped doing entirely? Like, what should people not do on LinkedIn?
Well, I think the type of content that you're writing should be in first person and not in third person. I mean, even like, okay, you sent me some instructions before this conversation, right? You're like, don't talk about things in an abstract way, talk about specifics. And you want to do the same thing on LinkedIn, right? If you talk about specifics, it's going to be interesting. Don't say companies face this problem. Say, we just had this problem and like, here's how it's affecting us. Like, tell a story instead about you or your company or like something someone on your team is facing and like add the characters, like add an image of what the characters look like. And that's going to be super engaging. Like we love stories. And so frame everything that way. So for example, hey, we're releasing analytics soon or like our next like version of our reporting. And instead of introducing like new analytics and like that's it in a photo of analytics in a blog post, I'm going to say our analytics are worst feature. That changes today. And it's going to be a post about, okay, they used to be bad and here's why, and here's what we learned, and here's like what we tried, and like here's where we're going. And so telling it in that story format works way, way better. It will get much higher engagement. People will be way more interested in what you're saying and they'll spread it more. So
How much time would you say that you spend, just you personally on LinkedIn, writing these posts, responding to comments? What are we looking at here for a founder who wants to do a similar strategy?
Oh my God, so much time. I mean, if it works for you, like I'll give specifics. Like we probably have half of our pipeline coming from LinkedIn, which is insane.
Wow. That's
So,
absolutely insane.
so it's like you can't, I think one thing that people think, and I thought this to start was, hey, like you're posting on LinkedIn, sure, maybe you have a post that goes viral every once in a while, but you don't take it seriously. You're like, we need a real pipeline generation, strategy. And it's not LinkedIn, LinkedIn social media. I think there was something that clicked in my brain, and people will always tell you like double down on what's working and just exploit that as much as possible. So I made this mistake. I was like, hey, LinkedIn works, but we're going to like try to diversify, do these other things like Google ads or like email or whatever. And instead I should have been like, hey, let's double down on LinkedIn right now because we know it's working. And so, we had some posts that went viral. You start posting every day, which is the first thing I should have done. I wasn't starting to post from my co-founders accounts, which is another thing I should have immediately done. But one day it just clicked for me. I'm like, wait, this is already working. Why don't I just do more of it and at higher quality? And so now every Sunday, my process is I go to Site Class in Soma, the coffee shop, and I go sit there and I write for like 5 hours until my computer dies. And then, so I'm spending like minimum 5 hours on Sunday. And then throughout, it'll probably get me like 9 posts. Sometimes the posts take longer than others, but I will probably get to like 3 or 4 days with like that block at Site Class. And then throughout the week, I'll continue to add more stuff, usually like the night before if I'm missing some content.
We don't make people do public math on our episode, so you're fine.
There we go. Yeah.
What else have you learned about LinkedIn posting? That's such a hot topic right now. I know every founder that's listening in, they're going to be curious about that. Like, what else should they know? What should they be thinking about when it comes to LinkedIn?
So first off, if you're considering it, I would question, okay, is our audience there? So like, if you were to try just cold DMing people on LinkedIn, would you find your customers? If the answer is yes, then they probably spend time on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn can be a good strategy for you. Alternatively, for example, some dev tools companies like to go on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that might be the better place for your audience. LinkedIn, what I'll say is it's very hard for people to start because it's uncomfortable. A lot of founders, especially the ones I'm friends with, come from software engineering backgrounds. They're more introverted. They don't like to put themselves out there. You just have to get over that. And actually, usually I find the more credibility someone has, or like the better the school they went to, or better job they've had, or higher job title they've had, the harder it is for them, because you basically have to be okay with embarrassing yourself in front of your entire work network by making a post that sounds stupid. So, I'm lucky. I am pretty shameless. And so, when we started posting, like these posts were terrible. They were just absolute crap. And for 3 months, probably I would get like 3 likes, and maybe one of them would be my mom. Like that's how bad they were. And then eventually one post took off, and I didn't even realize it at the time. Like a couple of days later, my co-founder was like, hey, your post is doing really well. I'm like, oh, what? And I log in, and we're having like demo bookings come in. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And so I then took that, became more serious about it, and also just tried to like replicate that format over and over. And so, yeah, basically what I'd say if you're considering posting on LinkedIn is start. That's the most important thing. Expect that it's not going to be good at the beginning. Like no one's good at anything to start. And just make sure that you get into this like rhythm of, hey, like I'm going to post twice per week. And like, I just need to ship. That's my goal. 2 times per week, I'm just going to ship something. And like, it's going to be out there, and that's okay. And they will be bad, and one day they will be good. And that's how I'd approach it and think about it.
Is there a marketing team today, or is it you 3 co-founders doing all of the marketing at the moment?
So we have a growth marketer who focuses on more performance marketing. That's what he's experimenting on. And then also some of like the engine building aspects of, hey, how do we get stuff into our CRM, and how do we like operationalize some of this? So he's trying Google ads, he's trying emails, he's trying like all sorts of stuff like that. But the content is all from me right now. So my co-founders, I write their LinkedIn posts.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
That's crazy. It's a lot of content. It makes a lot of sense though. It sounds like it's working. So of course makes sense to double down on it.
Exactly. Yep.
Who should founders follow? Is there someone that you've been following that's doing this really well, or that you've been inspired by, like many B2B founders?
There's one I like. So, okay, I'm going to skip some of the obvious ones like Adam Robinson, who's really good and everyone knows. I think Austin Hughes is quite good from Unify. He's still smaller. He has like 18,000 followers. I think Maximus Greenwald, he is doing something really cool that I haven't seen many people do, which is he's posting their revenue every single month with an company update. And so you can see exactly where they are and like what their challenges are. And I really respect that. And I think that's really cool. So I love seeing those posts. And so those are people I really appreciate and like following.
Nice. I follow Adam. I don't follow the other two. Adam's very entertaining. He loves to pick fights with people. Maybe he's toned that down a little bit, but there was a time where he took a very aggressive stance. Have you done anything like that? Have you kind of taken this like challenger brand position at all?
I thought about it. I think I know the fight you're referencing. That was with the guy who used to work at Catalyst, right?
Yeah.
The guy who now is running a company inconveniently called Operator.
Yep.
That now after OpenAI released their own, I feel like they're going to have to rebrand a little bit. I have thought about it. I think it would be a really good idea. There aren't as many influencers in the support space. And I was actually we hosted a meetup yesterday. I was talking to one of the attendees there. And my suspicion is that it's because people are so introverted in support often. So it's like not the personality type that wants to be like out there on LinkedIn and, getting followers and building an audience. So I think I would love to do it. I just need to find the right person. And maybe I need to do what they've done, which is like they found people who were basically unrelated in like their space and just like picked a fight for fun. And actually, I'm curious, did they orchestrate that? Like, was that like a planned thing or did it just kind of come out?
I don't know. I don't have an inside view there, but it seemed like it was more friendly than it looked on LinkedIn, I would think. Like when they got into like the rap battle videos and all of that stuff, I have to imagine that they were having fun with it.
Yeah, I would love to do that right now. Hey, if you want to pick a fight, I'm down.
Yeah, he picked a fight. The other one I saw was with 6 Sense, and that was very good because the rule book that I've always had with founders, I always tell people like always punch up, never punch down. Like you just look like an idiot if you punch down. And he pulled a move. He got them to these stupid lawyers sent him that demand letter. He posted on LinkedIn. He's like, I'm not standing down. And like, that was just horrible. It's like such a bad move from their part, but very, very genius on his part.
So I will say actually one marketing tactic that's worked really well for us is positioning ourselves as building the next Zendesk. And that's actually, we started with that even today on LinkedIn. We don't have our tagline as like building B2B support platform. We say building the next Zendesk because it's just a lot of people are fed up with Zendesk. It's the incumbent and it's not very loved, especially by the market that we sell to. And that's working especially well. So if you do have an incumbent that's weak, it's actually quite good to just like take a stab at them and hope like 6 Sense did that they're going to respond because that would be great. Actually, one story recently, I know, let's see, who was it? Greenhouse, the recruiting platform, the ATS, responded or made a post about Ashby, which what a PR mistake. Yeah. Ashby is like a Series C startup who is building recruiting software as well. And the CEO of this, I think they're public. I think Greenhouse is a public company. The CEO of a public company posts on LinkedIn saying, Ashby is not a tool. Like people are like failing their migrations, whatever. And it just, all these Ashby people started commenting saying, no, I love Ashby. Ashby is the best, like blah, blah, blah. And so you have this post where the CEO of this much bigger incumbent just made this huge marketing post to all of their customers in favor of Ashby, because now this entire thread is just filled with people who love Ashby. So massive, massive mistake. If Zendesk attacks us in any way, I'm here for it. And I'm very excited to engage. So that'll be a sign that we've made it and we're on the map now.
I was chatting with a guest earlier. They called them villain brands. So he said Microsoft Teams was a villain brand. Sounds like Zendesk could be a villain brand. I can't remember. He had a few other. Bill.com was one. I can't remember who else he was talking about. But that resonated a lot. And he said, if you can find this brand that the market generally hates, it's such an easy target to pick a fight because instantly you're going to have a whole crowd of people who are going to rally to your defense and rally on your side and help you pick that fight. I thought that was a very good way to frame it and think about it.
I love that. I've never heard the term villain brand, but that's exactly what we're doing. And it's funny. So some of my posts, probably once every week or two, I will have a post about Zendesk specifically, just like something comparing us to them or something about that. And I've been told that our posts are getting posted into Zendesk blind. And so they have their employees internally, kind of commenting and discussing the post. And some of them are pretty wicked. I almost feel like this is not the intention, but I feel like I'm hurting them from the inside. Where, for example, someone told me that an SVP they know at Zendesk makes $3 million per year. And I was like, that's crazy. And I also had heard from someone else that internally at Zendesk, unless you're like one of the VPs or higher, you don't get equity anymore. And so I was like, I made a post that was like, SVPs at Zendesk make 3 million. Meanwhile, normal employees get no equity. And then I made it like that. And so I'm sure that really caused a lot of headache for them, just honestly in like a nasty way. Like I would not want to be at the company or a manager who now has to explain like why someone has X salary, even other SVPs who might not be making the same amount. So yeah, just like dropped a bomb into the company. And it's just like at no effort, just me like sitting on a Sunday writing a LinkedIn post in a coffee shop. So
It's so genius. I look forward to seeing the day that you post like a cease and desist or something where they just kind of fall right into the trap. And then all of a sudden you have your public battle.
I actually looked up whether, so, my tagline on LinkedIn is co-founder of Pylon, building the next Zendesk. And I asked ChatGPT, I was like, figure out like whether saying building the next Zendesk is like a trademark infringement or something like that. And as far as I can tell, it's not. It says like, as long as you're not saying you are Zendesk or trying to like confuse people saying you are, that's fine. And we're clearly saying the next Zendesk is like different enough where it's not like we're pretending or impersonating them at all. So I think we're clear there, and we can, I think, use their name in that way, at least in like the social media context, as much as we want.
What I find just awesome about this conversation is, maybe it's not true, but like you seem like you're having fun with this. And most founders that I speak to, when they talk about marketing, it's not a fun topic for them. They're not enjoying it. They're not getting fun. They're not finding it to be fun. Sounds like you're having fun with this.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's definitely not something so again, engineering background, I started doing sales when we started doing it. Marketing is now very fun, and that's a big part of my job. I really want to go all out on marketing and like, just embrace this new like influencer B2B marketing that's now a thing. I would love to do kind of like Mr. Beast style, like founder games or something, right? Where we invite like a bunch of founders because we sell to early stage tech companies and just have them like compete in something like Office, like Olympics or something, just something super dumb. So that's like one idea. Another idea would be, I want to do architectural digest. Yeah, I want to do like an office tour. So instead of a home tour, like, oh, welcome to my home. Here's like, explaining everything. Let's do an office tour. Like that would be so fun, right? Even though it's not necessarily telling the story about your product and why it's better, people just fall in love with you. They fall in love with the company. They fall in love with the story. And, we have people who end up booking demos as a result of stuff like that. And they say, hey, I've been following Pylon for 6 months. I'm like, I've been waiting until like I could tell my team that we should start using you guys and like all this stuff. And so they're coming and they're like almost already sold because they just love the brand and love the people. And they're like, I know they hired someone recently. I know they're growing their sales team. I know they're like, they know all this stuff without me even having to tell them. There's kind of like an emotional attachment that they have. And, I feel that. I like watch YouTubers or like have like vloggers that I have one vlogger in particular who I really like. And I definitely feel that. I'm like, I totally like buy this person's product, or I would be influenced by whatever they're doing because I just think it's cool. And I like what their like whole persona and vibe. So I think if we can do the same thing for Pylon, that would be incredible.
I think that's where the world of B2B marketing is heading anyways, right? Like I think it's going to look and feel a lot more like consumer. Sounds like you're way ahead of that, because I think it's going to take B2B a very long time to get there, but it seems to be that's where everything's headed.
Yeah. And I know one other person people should follow. And this is an example where, hey, this is like a big boy doing marketing. This is the CEO of Zoom Info. I don't remember his name.
Henry something.
He does such a great job. I've watched his videos he posts on LinkedIn, and he'll do like very B2B, like it's about the product, but it's still entertaining. Like, hey, we're going to have 2 people sit at laptops. One of them's going to use Zoom Info, whatever product, to like search and like find something. The other's going to try to do it on their own, and who will be faster. It's just such a genius idea. It's so good.
I have another podcast called Behind the Category, and I had their CMO come on and asked them all about that and had him unpack that strategy. I see that too, and was wondering, like, is that his idea? Is his marketing team forcing him to do that? No, like, that's all him. Like, he wants to be doing this. He enjoys it, and he's obviously very, very good at it.
And that's the hard thing. I think it's so interesting how the new world of B2B is going to increasingly, I think, require these personalities to pop up, because you don't want to be a company that goes against a personality, because people like people, they don't like companies. And so they love the stories of the person, right? So if you will just lose by default, even if you have the same features, you'll like not be able to get your cold calls to connect, or your SDRs to be able to continue a conversation with someone if like they don't know your brand in the same way that they might know someone else's. So it's just such a major advantage. And I guess what's scary is if you are a founder who's not comfortable with that, that sucks. And I feel like the recommendation is kind of get over it, or like find a co-founder who is willing to do it or help you do it. So
Yeah, we have about 80 podcasts that we manage for clients, and we do a theme of the year, and the theme of the year is personality. Like every show that we produce, we're trying to tell the founders or the CMO if they're hosting it, like you need to inject more personality. Like you can't just be the person who's interviewing and that's it, just asking the questions and move on. Like you have to talk more about your personal experiences. You have to just have personality in the show. So for sure, very, very aligned on that idea.
Yeah.
Amazing. I know we're way over on time here, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. I feel like there's probably a bunch of other questions that I could ask you. So maybe we'll do a part 2. Maybe we can do a part 2 in person. Before we wrap here, though, if there's any founders that are listening in, they want to follow along with you, normally I ask where to go, but LinkedIn, I'm guessing is where we want to send them.
LinkedIn's the right place. Just look up Marty, so Marty, last name Kausas, Kausas, and you'll find me.
Amazing. Marty, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett. Cheers.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.